Welcome back, gang. It's Deltia from Deltiasgaming.com. In today's video, we're going to cover a 1-bar basic video for the Magicka Dragonknight class in Elder Scrolls Online Update 29 Flames of Ambition. This video is going to teach you the basic fundamentals of the Magicka Dragonknight and how to be successful with only 1 bar. We will cover passives, active skills, gear, champion points, rotation and priority, and what makes the Magicka Dragonknight unique among the other classes in the Elder Scrolls Online. As you see from this video, this Magicka Dragonknight is able to solo a veteran dungeon and hard mode with only 1 bar, and so can you. The full build will be out later, but for now, let's learn the basics about the Laceration build for the Elder Scrolls Online. Timestamps are below in the description if you wish to skip ahead, as well as other important links. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, subscribing, turning alerts on, as it helps my channel grow. Thanks for watching. Okay, we're on my Magicka Dragonknight. Dunmer looks amazing. It plays fantastic. Really like it in this current version of the game. And so I gotta answer the question here: what makes the Magicka Dragonknight unique? A few different things, and really it's the passives that resource sustain you as a Magicka Dragonknight. So they come in a different variety than what you're usually normally getting on other classes. And specifically, we go into the class skill line. It's Earth and Heart. Earth and Heart, the active abilities are fantastic, but this passive Battle Roar is the foundation of any Dragonknight build. When you cast an ultimate, you restore resources. So think of the Dragonknight as primarily functioning around the ultimate for resource sustain. There's a few other ways you can sustain resources as well. So if we go in the Ardent Flame passive here, Combustion. When you apply burning to an enemy, you restore magic. So depending on which side you go, magic or stamina, you have a way you're rewarded for using damage over time offensive abilities to sustain, and you're also rewarded for using ultimates to sustain. So think of it, the passives are super important on a Magicka Dragonknight. Speaking of damage over time effects, that's really what the Magicka Dragonknight excels in, is dots, and specifically engulfing flames. The stam version of this, if you watch the other video, is very powerful as well. But the unique benefit of this one, it's a conal, does damage over time 14 seconds, so it's going to do some AoE and massive single target damage as well. And then if you read, the second effect is flame damage attacks based on your offensive stat with a maximum of 10% bonus damage taken. So the enemies you tag with engulfing flames can take 10% more flame damage, making you just burn down the house. Another thing I like about Magicka Dragonknight in this dot, Burning Embers, it heals you for 75% of the total damage inflicted when it ends. So it kind of leans into using dots plain aggressive is also your primary means for healing yourself. Speaking of ways to heal yourself, the Dragonknight has come very far from when it originally launched in the ways you can heal yourself. Speaking of this Burning Embers and using a dot, there's another one, Flame Lash. Targets that are off balance will proc a separate icon on the 4 key here, my Flame Lash key, and it'll allow you to hit it again, reduce cost, increase damage, and hits massive heal as well. So right here, you got 1-2 abilities, and this Flame Lash you can get right away. Take the morph, and as a new player, if you're stunning and setting people off balance, it's very effective. And so the primary means I use for that combination Flame Lash, I've been doing it for years in PvP, is locking something down with talons to immobilize them, and then bang, proccing a double Flame Lash to get that heal. I basically play that combination throughout the entire game. A couple other ways to heal. Cauterize is fantastic. It's going to tick every 5 seconds, 15 seconds. It's going to give you Spell Prophecy just for having it slotted. Very effective on Stam and Magic as well, PvE and PvP. A couple other ways you can heal. Coagulating blood. I don't primarily rely on this build, but it is a way to heal, and you can use it in some PvP situations. Speaking of PvP, speaking of healing, another one that's super fantastic and what I used to play in PvP and attracted me to coming back to this playstyle in Magicka Dragonknight is Draw Essence. You're basically going to suck in magic damage. The enemies that are around you are going to get hit with this in an 8-meter radius, and it's going to heal you based on the damage done on that initial suck in. After 2.5 seconds, you're going to exhale, doing damage and restoring magic for people that are hit. if you're taking a lot of pressure in AoE situations, you can suck in, get a heal, and then breathe out and do get some restore. So if there's 6 or more mobs around 6, you're gonna just basically have a crazy amount of healing and a decent amount of resource sustain. It's a really fun playstyle. I've used this a million times in PvE and PvP. One of my favorite abilities and very underrated. The other morph is good too. So healing continues. Magicka Dragonknight, Frag Shields, right here. One of the only classes that get major mending within their class kit. So you can cast this, very high magic cost, but you get major mending for 16 seconds. I just switched this morph because I didn't know that it changed over to this morph specifically. So you got to switch this over, you're coming back to the game, but major mending. So you have a massive amount of ways to heal yourself on a Magicka Dragonknight. So that leads us to the next question, and that's leveling as a Magicka Dragonknight. What do you do? What's your priorities? So at endgame, PvP and PvE are kind of 2 different things. So I'm going to focus on PvP for a bit. Leveling, just solo, just kind of doing things around the game. You're going to want Destruction Staff. So that's going to be your main weapon of focus. At endgame, I do like the Destruction Staff for PvP, and then I also like the Restoration Staff for PvP and PvE. But primarily, you're going to want to focus on Destruction Staff, and maybe picking up another weapon. If you want the Tank Sword and Board, great. If you want to be a little bit more mobile and maybe supporty, pick up a Restoration Staff. But your primary goal here is a Destruction Staff. So what you're going to do, you're going to pick up this class, right? And you're going to slot 3 abilities right away. Just the very first that you get right out of the game. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let's get this one. And now you have 3 abilities on your bar for each of the class skill lines. Makes sense because they're going to level up the same, and then you can get access to all these passives. The passives are what make you really, really important, because you can get all the passives. You can't get all the active abilities on your bar, right? Makes sense. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to go to World. You're going to get Soul Magic. This here, Consuming Trap, is the morph that you can get right away. Incredible resource sustain. Tag on a mob, it dies, floods you up with a full resource sustain. Incredible for just starting out. And that leaves 1 slot here for a weapon. You're going to pick up the Destruction Staff, click, get a skill point, put it in here, and this is going to be kind of your loadout throughout the entire game. Once you get an ultimate, then you're going to slot an ultimate in this slot here, and you're going to take away 1 ability, and that will free up another ability for the second weapon. And then now you'll be leveling 2 weapons, all of your class skill lines. So you reach endgame, and guess what? You're not going to be hamstrung having to go back and re-leveling these. Trust me, it's very, very good. Another thing you're going to want to do, you're going to want to take 5 light armor. That way you can start unlocking these passives. It's going to make you very, very powerful. I would recommend 1 medium, 1 heavy. The reason why, you also want to level these up. In case you switch from magic to stamina, in case you switch from damage to tank, or healer, or whatever it is, you're going to want to have all of these level up, especially if this is your main character. So, to reiterate, 3 abilities on your class skill line, a weapon, Soul Magic, swap this in and out, and then when your ultimate's here, it's going to help you out. 5 light, 1 medium, 1 heavy. You're going to reach endgame. It's going to be great. Other skill lines you're going to want to prioritize. Psijic is very, very powerful. Channel Acceleration, if you want to get access to this, it's not fun doing, but very good. Mage's Guild, you are on a magic user, you're going to need this probably at some time. Fighter's Guild is incredible. There's a lot more to this. I'll explain the full build. Very, very good leveling up. You can grind to get that up pretty easily. And Undaunted. These passives are very, very useful on every single class. So don't forget those once you hit endgame or you're working towards it through the leveling process. Save you a lot of time and energy at endgame. Now, let's switch gears, talk about the skills. So we're going to switch gears, talk about skills, and let's strip the Dragonknight down. What do we need and why? So let's start with healing, because we got to survive. So we're going to go to the Ardent Flame, an ability I talked about earlier, Carterize. It's a very powerful heal. It gives us an added bonus of Major Prophecy spell crit just for slotting it. The way you're going to use this is try to keep this up in general, 15 seconds. So it's going to give you 3 heals every 5, or 1 heal, excuse me, every 5 seconds. If you need an on-demand heal, click it, cast it. Just recast it. It'll automatically proc that initial heal. That's how you use it. In pressure situations, you're just basically going to keep it up because you're probably going to need healing throughout. So keep this up primarily, and also to help out allies too. If you're playing with other people, or maybe in the future with a companion. Love this ability. Passive, active, fantastic. You got to have it slotted. So now we need damage, right? And at endgame, you're probably going to change this morph, but Flame Lash, is incredible single target damage. It's not that bad of a cost. You're going to do damage. This is your main spammable, and we're going to pair it with another ability to proc the second effect. So when you mobilize or stun, you set them off balance. Off balance enemies, you can do power lash. The icon is going to change. You're going to hit it again. It's going to give you a nice burst heal. So how we proc this on this build is what I've used in PvP for years and years and years. Burning Talons. This morph here, it has a high magic cost. You're not going to want to spam it. It's going to lock enemies down for 4 seconds. And then they're going to take 4 seconds of flame damage. So this actually is a very good dot as well. It's not something you're going to want to use in PvE endgame, but just getting by, fantastic. So you're going to have this on your bar. You're going to lock enemies down in place, and you're going to double whip them, giving you that healing on demand. So now we have some kind of healing coming in here. We can on demand cast it. And then we have just using our main spammable to get heals. And we have a damage over time effect and a CC mechanic. Fantastic setup here. Next, we're going to have resource sustain. That's very important. This is a no-brainer skill that doesn't require much to get. In fact, you just start your character up and you get soul magic level 1. You can plop this on your bar right away. You're going to get this morph ASAP. Tag enemies that you know you're going to die. So not necessarily the highest HP ones. You're going to get the little ads and little ones that you know you can kill right away because they're going to die and give you a flood of resource and health. It is a damage over time effect, and on Magicka Dragonknight, it doesn't do too bad over 10 seconds. Is this going to be the best dot overall endgame? Absolutely not. But it's fantastic in PvE and PvP if you know something's going to die, because it adds a little bit of pressure, and it's going to give you a flood of resources and health if it dies. Now we're going to go to a last ability that is the foundation of the Dragonknight, Magicka Dragonknight, I should say, Engulfing Flames. So we talked about earlier, Conal. Pretty high magic cost, but it's great AoE in front of you, and then damage over time effect. Plus, it's going to buff all our flame damage. So right here, we're going to use this primarily first to buff our flame damage, and then we're going to lock enemies down with this. If it's a boss that cannot be locked down, it's probably not beneficial to cast this because of the high magic cost, right? But if it's a bunch of mobs running around, very effective. And then we're going to start spamming our flame lash. The priority is basically keeping this up every 14 seconds, keeping this up every 10 seconds, and then using this as needed if you're getting overwhelmed by ads, or you just want to proc the flame lash double whip. And then cauterize. I do keep this up in pressure situations. What I mean by pressure situations, if I'm playing solo, 13 mobs are beating the heck out of me, well, guess what? There's no one else they can beat up, so I have to keep this up, especially if you're doing veteran solo dungeons, which probably isn't the most effective way of doing it, but good practice. So that's what I mean by pressure. And now we're going to get to the ultimate. You got to have Standard of Might. It's crazy, crazy good. You drop the house, 250 ultimate, 20 seconds. Standing in it, going to reduce your damage, and it's also going to increase your damage. The trick to using this is planning it down when you know the fight's stationary and you know you have a long time ahead of you. So some fights, the boss will move very soon after the initial engagement. Don't plan it down then. Wait for the boss to move, or it's going to be in place for a while. Plan it down and get in there. You're going to take a lot less damage. You're going to do a lot less damage. So boss is going to take a lot. This is just what just burns down the house. Now, Earth and Heart, when you plop this thing down, another good way to use it is if you're out of magic, you're out of resources, you need to heal. Don't be afraid to cast it because of Battle War. It's going to give you a flood of resources, including health. So it's a very, very powerful ability because it has such a high ultimate cost. So what I like to do is rotate my Standard of Might for resource sustain along with a potion. So every 30 seconds or so, I'm pretty much getting a potion, I'm dropping my Standard of Might, I'm using a consuming trap here and there, and that's how I can basically stay infinite resources up. So kind of show you this in real life, and this build in particular is a lot better on AoE fights, which is the majority of the game versus a single target fight. So we're going to take a potion to get our spell power. We're going to close the gap here, fully charge heavy, engulfing. Then I'm going to use consuming trap, and you see that that icon that lit up? There was an icon that lit up. There you go, the flame lash, so it's proccing right there. And this is what you're doing. Consuming trap comes off, so I'm going to recast that. Engulfing comes off, I'm going to recast that. And then I'm just whipping and dipping here. So you'll see the talons does work, but I'm not going to lock down a boss. So use the talons not all the time because it's going to just blow through your resources. So as my resources are going down, I'm going to cast the talons because I can do this, bang, watch. All my magic just floods back up because I'm using Banner. And that's when the damage just really spikes. Use a potions off cooldown. So think of your whip. Your whip is your filler. Your whip is your filler. So when you don't have a dot to recast, when you're not casting something like Cauterize, when you're in pressure and you need some healing, you're filling in the gaps with your whips. And always light attack in between. I have a light attack weaving video if you need help with that. And then I'm not using Talons. Why? Well, because I don't have Consuming Trap going off. I don't have potions to rely on. So as you can see, this is kind of what you're doing. Very simple. You got a 14-second dot and a 10-second dot. So naturally, you're going to cast Consuming Trap, and then a couple seconds later, maybe one whip, one light attack, or two whips, two light attacks, you're going to cast Engulfing Flames. When you're in pressure, use Talons to lock and immobilize enemies, and then double whip for a heal, Cauterize up. This thing will burn down the house, and it's just one bar. Very, very easy. Let's talk about gear next. I'm going to briefly touch on this. The full build will go deep dive into this. I run 2 5-pieces. One is False Gods. This is a Trials set that you can get in Sunspire. It's crazy resource sustain, and the content I pretty much play is solo or vet dungeons, which is almost every single fight has adds that you can kill easily. It pairs well with Consuming Trap to basically have unlimited resources, really. Plus the major speed on a Magicka Dragonknight makes this game way, way, way more fun. It's very easy to get a hold of this, just pugging in group, doing Kragorn, and you can just get a group together, go pug this, and get normal done, and get a bunch of pieces, no problem. Next setup, speaking of easy to get, is Mother's Sorrow. Adds a lot of crit. Crit is a very valuable resource in PvE. This is also Overland, I think, in Deshawn as well. So you can buy it off the traders. Very easy to get a hold of. You're going to run 1 Flame Staff on the front. And you're going to run Divine Traits on your armor, Max Magic Enchants. This is what I use in endgame. Jewelry is also going to be Bloodthirsty, and Spell Damage Enchants. Very simple setup. Monster Helm, I'm going to run Zons. Ignore the trait. I don't have enough Transmute to change it, but you should have Max Magic, Divines on that. Zons works really, really well for single target pressure. There's a bunch of options. Blargs, really good for burst. Valken Scoria, also good for single target and AoE. Garothar, great for AoE. Engine Guardian, great for sustain. I just love that single target pressure and that laser beam of fire on Zons, and thinks it fits well with the Dragonknight the way I do this. Even with this amount of healing, you can run Ring of the Pale Order. It's a mythic, very easy to get a hold of. I would just drop your Monster Helm, and you should not have a problem with surviving, but something I don't use because I don't have a problem with surviving. With 100,000 gold on my Magic Nightblade, the alternative setup that I ran was 5 pieces of Mother Sorrows purple on my body with weird traits, and then 5 pieces of spinners, jewelry, and a couple body pieces. And then I went with 2 willpower weapons. Very simple, very cheap, very easy. Precise traits on the weapons. You got 1 Fire Staff on front. If you're going to run double bar, not a 1 bar build, you can get another 1 Fire Staff on the back. Very cheap, under 100k, and I was able to complete Batatran Hollows and Maelstrom Arena on Veteran with just a simple setup. So I'd recommend that as an alternative. Let's switch gears, talk about the champion points. I'm going to briefly touch on this, just the shinies. Watch my full video and check my written build in the description if you want more detail. But they're pretty obvious so far in this game. Steed's Blessing. This is movement speed out of combat. You're going to work up here to Treasure Hunter, so you can farm gear a little bit more effectively. You're going to work down here to Rationer, increase food and drink, and then you're going to increase or the chances, reduce the chances of actually consuming a potion of poison. Just saves you a little bit of money. Moving over to the blue tree, what we're going to do is want to pump up our magic. We're going to want to pump up our crit chance, and then our crit damage and crit healing. So that's a slottable. We're going to move over here, max this out if you can for offensive penetration. Even solo, that's really good. Deadly Aim, Thaumaturge, Biting Aura. That should be your 4 slottables that I use and found the most effective. You're going to come down here, and the most effective one I found is Preparation. So take 10 points in Quick Recovery. This will really increase your defensives. And then Elemental Aegis, and then lastly focus on Hardy. Throw in some points to Elemental Quick Recovery if you have anything else. Moving over to the red tree, you're going to make your way over to Siphoning Spells, restoring damage when you kill targets, okay? So you take Tumbleweed, maybe 10 in Mystic Tenacity, pump up Hero's Vigor. Get this. Once you have that, I would go Rejuvenation, Ironclad, Boundless Fatality, and you got your slottables. Let's talk about consumables real quick and what I use. So food-wise, I stick with my stat food because I have Consuming Trap on this build, False Gods. I do not have a problem with resource sustain. You'll also see that I have a poison. I use that over my enchant currently on this build. So damage health, you can get these. The Crown Store ones are also a good alternative. You have a bunch of those laying around as well. Potions that I run, so you can run, I have these expensive ones here, spell power. You can actually get the ones that just have spell power and detect or something else, because we're getting that spell crits on this one. So there is alternatives to this. Also, I do have tri-stat or tri-restoration potions on me in case I get in trouble, especially if I'm doing solo content. This Battle Roar, I'm going to be very, very hard to kill. Okay, let's talk about the Mundus Stone choices. A lot of choices in Mundus Stone. Currently, I run the Shadow. Reason being is buffed, I'm at 58% crit. That's very, very high. Usually, if I'm buffed around 50 or over, I go with the Shadow Mundus Stone for increased crit damage. Then if I'm under that, I go with the Thief. Some other good options, Lover is very good if you're not at max penetration, which is around 18,000. So that could actually add more damage, but all around I like this setup better. You can also go with some other ones like Spell Power if you're going in between PvE and PvP quite a bit, but I would stick with the Shadow if you're primarily doing this type of build. PvP, you might want to go with the Spell Power one. And that's a build on the Magicka Dragonknight. As you can see from some of these video clips, the thing is very, very powerful. It's very easy, and 1 bar is quite effective. When you go from 1 bar to the end game build, which will come out later, that's when you're going to add in more damage over time effects, more buffs to amplify your damage, increase your speed, and just go freaky powerful. But really the base, the foundation of the build is really on this. So take this as a starter template, use it, and then as you start advancing, put that second bar on there, put some more damage over time effects, and modify it the way that it works for you. Remember, this works for me. If it doesn't work for you, that's fine. Modify it, take this as a blueprint, make it your own, and I appreciate you watching.